Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 19th of November. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to discuss Odessa region. As you can see, there is new icon on the map. This green icon shows at least 3 persons on this icon. That means that these days we can find a lot of strikes on the territory of Odessa. And civilians in this area strikes against the situation that this area is without electricity for more than 3 days. And the thing is that if we're talking, we understand that the Russians trying to reduce the Ukrainian energy facilities during the previous months and these weeks and these months as well. But the thing is, if we're talking about the south of Ukraine, there is a town by the name of Yuzhno-Ukrainsk, this one. If we get closer to this town, you're going to see that there is a South Ukrainian nuclear power plant. So you need to understand that there is electricity in the south of Ukraine, but the Ukrainian authorities decided to turn the electricity and use their all Ukrainian energy power to supply and support the western part of Ukraine. Of course, we can understand this. Why? Because the Russians, they attack this area with missiles and the rockets, but they attack this area much rare than the Russians attack the rest part of Ukraine. So that's why the Ukrainians understand that they need to supply and support the western part of Ukraine for many reasons. From economic perspective, from industrial perspective, and so on. And today we understand that Ukraine has a lot of problem with electricity, and now they're trying to do their best, trying to save economy, trying to supply and support army, trying to build air defense system, and so on. And for these purposes, they are forced to shut down some regions from electricity, and Odessa is one of these regions. And there are strikes in this town, and the Ukrainian authorities try to reduce the effect from these strikes in entire Ukraine, because they understand that this might be a real bomb, media bomb, and this bomb may force the Ukrainians to start strike all over the Ukraine. And of course, the strikes all over the Ukraine will lead to the peace agreement. And according to this peace agreement, of course, the Ukrainians will be a loser part, not the winner one. Furthermore, some Russian sources and Western sources as well today confirmed and reported that the President Office of Ukraine has received a new ultimatum from the Kremlin. If the negotiation process does not resume in November, the entire energy system of Ukraine will be destroyed. So this is the new Russian ultimatum. The Russians understand the situation very well. They understand the situation with the strikes. They understand that the rich people, the rich part of Ukraine, they don't have any problems with electricity, with money, with warmth. But the rest of Ukraine is that more than 99.99% of the population has a lot of problems, not just with electricity. They have problems with job, with salaries, and so on. And today we can say the answer from the Ukrainian side to the Russians, and the answer is that some very important, powerful authorities from Ukrainian side said that the entire population of Ukraine should be ready to leave Ukraine by winter comes. Imagine yourself that the Ukrainian official authorities requested, told, noted that the entire population of Ukraine, and now we are talking about something around 30 millions of people, should be ready to leave Ukraine, to evacuate from Ukraine by December. Today is 19th of November, so it's 11 days left. So imagine yourself to evacuate entire country. So this is some kind of answer to the Russians about their ultimatum to start negotiation process. So the Ukrainians are planning, if during the previous months or days, weeks, we're talking that the Western countries are going to fight till the last Ukrainian. Now we see that Ukrainian authorities are planning to fight till the last Ukrainian. And this is a very dangerous and very bad situation. We'll follow the protest and strike process in Odessa, but I believe that this is not the final town. We can see this situation. Furthermore, now the Russians know that there are problems with civilians. Furthermore, on the basis of that, they can make some kind of, let's say, civilian coup in Odessa and to bring the Russians to this territory without any even storm operation or without any fightings and so on. People are very angry there, and they understand. And if you take a look at Kherson as well, while Kherson was under the Russians, there were no problem with the water, with electricity, with the money, with the salary. There were no problem at all. Yes, there was some kind of shelling from the Ukrainian side. There were some problems. There are a lot of problems as usual in every single country, but there was a regular problem in city that located in right in front of the front line. But we're talking about today, there are no electricity. In Kherson, there are no water, no job, no salary, nothing. Furthermore, the Ukrainian authorities started mobilization process in this town, and now they're forcing the civilians from this town to join the Ukrainian army. When the Russians were there, they didn't do this. They saved civilians, they gave them job, they asked them to work, to continue to live the regular life. Very difficult situation. Same situation in Mykolaiv. There are a lot of problems with water, electricity, but just one town where we can find strikes. But I believe, I repeat myself, this is not the final town. We will see the strikes in Ukraine. And if we got this answer from Ukraine side that they asked the people to be ready to evacuate from entire Ukraine, I believe that the Russians will make the final, decision, attack. And furthermore, the Ukrainian authorities reported that another 2 or 3 attacks from the Russian side, and the entire energy system of Ukraine will be collapsed completely without any possibility to be recovered. So we'll see the situation. Now we are going to discuss the situation on the front lines. For these purposes, let's move to the Russian sources map. There are a lot of very interesting updates. And first of all, let's take a look at Kherson district. As you can see, there are no clashes in this area. There is just some kind of 2 icons showing that the Russians were attacking the Ukrainian positions, their headquarters in this area. But this is not the most important update that I would like to discuss with you about Kherson district. For these purposes, let's take a look at the deployment map. As you can see, there are a lot of forces. There are a lot of Ukrainian forces. This map has been updated. I'm not saying that this picture is 100% to believe. I believe that there are some differences and this information is not 100% correct. It's very possible, of course. But anyway, this map tries to show the situation as close as possible to reality. And when I was trying to do my own analysis according to the data I have, I believe that most of the information were correct. And if you take a look at this map, you're going to see that there are still a lot of forces from the Ukrainian side. And now we can see the situation as we discussed in the past that Ukrainians don't have possibilities to redeploy these forces. They have a lot of forces, but they don't have possibility to redeploy these forces, let's say to Zaporozhye area or to Donetsk area. And this is exactly what the Russians need. They collapsed the Ukrainian, let's say, evacuation system or redeployment system. And now the Ukrainians stuck in Kherson district. They can't continue their offensive operation on this bank of Dnipro River because the fact that it's highly unlikely they will try to cross the Dnipro River. If we're talking about this area, they need to have boats, a lot of boats, and not just 40 or 50 boats. They need hundreds of boats to move the infantry, but in this case, they won't be able to move their armored vehicles. And if we're talking about this part of Dnipro River where it's not so big, for these purposes, they need a lot of pontoon bridges, but even the Russians refused this idea to protect Kherson with the pontoon bridges because the distance of the river in this area is up to 800 meters. It's not an easy job to support and to redeploy their forces and to continue offensive operation when the bank of the river is under fire, artillery fire. For these purposes, and this is the reason why the Ukrainians, try to show some media picture of attack in direction of this south of Ukraine and this bank on this ground, trying to show that we have some business here and we are planning to do this. But the thing is that they just can't redeploy their forces from this side of Dnipro River. So it's not very good for the Ukrainians. If we are talking about Zaporozhye area, there are no changes. As you can see, there are no updates, no reinforcement from the Ukrainian side. So for now, no upcoming offensive operation from the Ukrainian side during the next weeks. At least I don't see this. Maybe the Ukrainians are planning to do something. Maybe they have some deal with this map not to show the real disposition, who knows. But according to information I have, for now I don't believe that Ukrainians, at least today or this weekend, are planning to start any offensive operation in direction of Melitopol or Zaporozhye power plant. Now we are moving to Marinka or Ugledar front line. If we take a look at the Russian sources map in this area, there are not much changes. The Russians report that they attacked some headquarters from the Ukrainian side. They managed to set down some drones. They're storming, a continuous storming of Marinka. They're attacking the Ukrainian position. So not so much the same situation as we saw yesterday, the day before yesterday, and so on. But if we take a look at the map, at the deployment map, we're going to see one important difference. And this is very important. This one. This icon, and if we open this icon, we see that this 1st Battalion, 1st Tank Brigade. If you remember, this brigade used to be located on the north of Velika Novoselovka, in this area. As we call this area Vremivka Tactical Bridgehead. So they were there, this brigade. And now this brigade were moved to the Marinka, to this area. I'm not saying that this brigade is located in Marinka, I'm just trying to say that Ukrainians used this brigade to protect the front line from Ugledar to Marinka. They were forced, this brigade was in reserve, this wasn't some kind of active, this battalion wasn't some kind of active unit that was always involved in the battle and so on. That was reserves. And the Ukrainians were forced to move their strategic reserve to stop the collapsing of the front line. But they did one mistake. They make positions near Velika Novoselovka weak. And as we discussed, the Russians, according to my understanding of the situation, if the Russians are going to attack, they will use this bridgehead, the area between Guliaipole and Velika Novoselovka, the main attack in direction of Vasilievka and of course Pavlograd. So, and I believe that we are going to see this operation. So this is the important update about Ugledar. If we're talking about entire Donetsk region, about the clashes all over the front line from, let's say, Ugledar to Avdiivka, as you can see, not much changes. The Ukraine lost around 120 soldiers and 12 armored vehicles. But important update from the Russian Ministry of Defense, that the Ukrainians got these losses not as a result of their attack of Ukrainian offensive operation. These losses, the Ukraine got these losses as a result of offensive operation from the Russians. So the Russians are attacking the Ukrainians from Ugledar, to be more precise, from Prichistovka, this town Prichistovka, all along the front line to Novobakhmutovka, and even further to, I believe, Bilogorovka. So this front line is very active, and the Russians are pushing. Now we are moving to Bakhmut. As you can see, one important update that confirms my projection that I made maybe a few days ago. The Russians, or to be more precise, Wagner group there, developed their bridgehead on the northwest from Atradovka, this area. Now they control the forest, the green area between Kislivka, Klishivka and these lakes, small water reservoirs, and Atradovka, and their main goal, main destination is to take control over Andreevka. I believe that these days we're going to see the battle for Andreevka, and I believe that somewhere in the middle of the next week we're going to see that Wagners will enter this town, and after that we can say that Ukrainians got a little bit closer to entire collapsing in this area. If we're talking about the Ukrainians, we got more and more reports about the critical situation in Bakhmut. Hundreds of losses, hundreds of killed, wounded people. This town is ruined step by step, and the destiny of this town is much worse than Mariupol had, because Mariupol is almost rebuilt since the beginning of the special operation. And if we're talking about Bakhmut, I believe that this town will be reduced to ruins, because the Ukrainians can't leave this town, can't lose, because if they lose Bakhmut, the entire north area, Seversk, Belogorovka, Solidar will be collapsed automatically. It's highly unlikely that the Ukrainians are going to protect this area, or they will have a cauldron and they will try to fight being encircled, or they will have to retreat. And if they retreat, they will have to retreat towards Slaviansk-Kramatorsk line. So let's see. Ukraine, everything is possible. Everything is possible. If you remember, the Russians managed to start some clashes near Sidorova, Mayaki, and Krasnopolye. They almost got Slaviansk, but after that they were forced to leave the area. Very big territory, and I believe that this territory maybe is more or something like, I don't know, some countries, small countries in Europe. So the Russians were forced to leave. So everything might happen in Bakhmut. But for now, the things develops in the way that the Russians advancing. And for now, I don't see any possibilities from the Ukrainians to reduce or to stop the Russians' advances in this area. Now we are moving, and if we are talking about this area, there are also some changes on the deployment. Very important changes. The first one is that the Ukrainians moved their fourth rapid response brigade. It's the very fresh update. I don't know what is their purpose there. As you can see, this brigade is located somewhere between Solidar and Bakhmut. Their type of these forces says by itself Rapid Response Brigade, National Guard. Something very cool, something very powerful, something very strong were deployed here. And their purposes for now, I'm not sure the real purposes of this brigade. Furthermore, the Ukrainians deployed 241st Territory Defense Brigade. To say it with the different words, they brought a lot of meat on the front line. It's Territory Defense Brigades. This brigade is very big, I believe up to 4,000 people, and their main job just to, to give Ukrainians time to recover the 53rd Mechanized Brigade, 30th Mechanized Brigade, and 62nd Mechanized Brigade, which got a lot of damage from the Wagners during the previous clashes for Andreevka, Klishevka, Kurdyumovka, Zryanovka, and Mayorsk. So maybe now they just want to win some time with this territory defense to stop the Russians. This is the only thing that I understand the Ukrainians can achieve by this redeployment. Now, if we are talking about Belogorovka, there are no changes, the situation the same, no updates, and now we are moving to Lyman-Kupiansk frontline. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians reported that Ukrainian losses from Lyman to Kupiansk, from all over the front line, from Kupiansk till the Seversk Donetsk, was around 110 soldiers and something around 11 armored vehicles. Not much, but there are a lot of very interesting updates on this map. First of all, I would like to tell you that Ukrainians deployed their 95th Air Assault Brigade, completely fresh 95th Brigade, right in front of Chernopopovka, Plashanka, and right in the area near Makiivka. We discussed this town yesterday, where the Ukrainians killed armless 10 Russian soldiers. So they deployed 95th Air Assault Brigade, that Assault Brigade, as you understand the title of the brigade, and their main goal the next weeks is to start offensive, or not to start, or continue offensive operation, and to break through and penetrate the Russian defense orders in these forests. As you can see, this brigade is located right in front of this forest line. The tanks, highly unlikely that the tanks are able to cross this area, because one forest, another forest line, another forest, another forest. So the only way to penetrate and cross this area is just using mobile infantry. Mobile stormtroopers from forces, and the Ukrainians moved these forces to this region with the purpose to achieve some success. Another important update, if we move a little bit to the north, we're gonna see another important update from this map is 109th Territory Brigade. Also very fresh update. So as you can see, the Ukrainians moved infantry to the south, moved to the front. They moved some kind of meat to the middle part. And if we're talking about the north, we discussed this area many times, about the area around this forest, about that the Ukrainians were trying to penetrate Yes, this area, Kuzyomovka, we discussed these forests many times, that the Ukrainians can't cross the railroad and so on, but they need to continue storming of this operation. And these days, the Ukrainians deployed right exactly in this area the 4th Tank Brigade. And as you can see, there are less forests in this area, and the main goal and the main job of this tank brigade, just to penetrate the Russians and to help their motorized and mechanized brigade, like the 92nd or 14th, that locate a little bit to the north, this one, to continue attacking in direction of Svatove from the north. So where there are less forests, the Ukrainians are using mechanized and tank brigades, and they make this region much more powerful than it used to be. And if we're talking about the south, the Ukrainians moved stormtroopers whose main job is to penetrate the forest and to attack Svatov from the south. And they brought a lot of forces of territory defense in the middle part, with one purpose: not to allow the Russians to start their counter-offensive operation, let's say, from Svatov between these two forces, with purpose to split this territory and then to, let's say, to solve these two islands one by one. So the Ukrainians are ready to start the final storm of Svatova. And I believe that this operation we're going to see the next week before winter comes, and as Ukrainians are saying, before the Ukrainians will make a decision to start evacuation process of entire Ukrainian population. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in Ukraine. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.